Hi, everybody. Every time you turn around, it's something else. I can hear my mama saying that, though she was definitely talking about something other than the news back then. Welcome back to Harley on the Headlines. I am Harley Carnes, and I'm really glad you decided to join us. Cannot do it without you. If there's anything good for you here, please help us spread the word. I'd appreciate it. Tell someone, push some buttons. Meantime, this little headline is pretty disappointing. Cambodia and Thailand are at each other again. Thailand launched some airstrikes along the border, says Cambodia fired first. Cambodia says, no, it was Thailand that shot first. War in Southeast Asia is never a good thing. The Thais are American allies, were key during the Vietnam conflict for U.S. operations. I'm not going to try to sort out the who shot first question. They've been like angry neighbors leaning across the fence, making faces and saying nasty things for quite a while. Both sides have a lot of military arrayed along the border. It was only a matter of time before someone struck a match. Where it goes from here is unlikely to be any place good. This is pretty interesting Supreme Court stuff. The issue is whether President Trump has the power to fire a Federal Trade Commission member. He fired two of them, Rebecca Slaughter and Alvaro Bedoya. They went to court saying he didn't have the just cause needed to fire them that the Supreme Court said was necessary in a 1935 case. That's 90 years ago. The court then said FTC commissioners may be fired by a president, but only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. Wondering what the FTC actually does? Well, this is what the government website says. I decided to dig in a little bit and see what this is all about. The Federal Trade Commission, FTC, works to prevent fraudulent, deceptive, and unfair business practices. They also provide information to help consumers spot, stop, and avoid scams and fraud. Sounds like the FTC is a bureaucracy full of white knights on valiant steeds, riding to the rescue of the good citizens as they work, purchase, or try to do some business. Well, here's the backstory. The business community doesn't describe them that way. They say the FTC is part of the problem that plagues them. Red tape is the name of the FTC game. It's as though the government only thinks it's accomplishing something if they have regulations, and boy howdy, do they have plenty of those. Books and books and books full of rules and regs, and the FTC is one of the most prolific writers. As the Chambers of Commerce put it, the costs of the FTC's regulate first, ask questions later agenda are becoming clear. Under current leadership, and they wrote this during the end of the Biden years, by the way, under current leadership, mergers cost more, take longer, and have become less certain. Both the business community, and that means all kinds of businesses, from the multinationals right down to the donut shop on the corner, and the antitrust practitioners themselves say the FTC is an albatross, a yoke, instead of a help. 66% said the FTC harms innovation and competition. 69% said they don't even want to talk about pro-growth innovation anymore. Inside the agency, respect for leadership is down to just 49%, down 34% through the Biden years. 87% of agency staff before Biden said senior leadership was honest with high integrity. That number at the end of the Biden years had fallen to just 53%. Bidenomics is blamed for the FTC's hardline, heavy hand with business aimed at making unions stronger and making growing business vastly more difficult and more expensive. The Biden team thought it would increase affordability. That's what they said. There's that word again, right? Affordability. But it's obviously not worked that way and played a part in the blast of inflation that's made everything less, not more, affordable. In short, the Trump criticism of the FTC is that it has lost its way and has become more problem than solution. The president told two of the commissioners, "You're fired." And now they and the left are having a bit of a hissy fit. The Supreme Court is expected to rule, and a big part of the ruling will have to focus on this question: who decides whether commissioners are inefficient, neglectful of duty, or guilty of malfeasance? Any one of those would do. And if the president or perhaps the Treasury Secretary can make that determination, then these particular firings will stick. If not, it'll be sticky. This is one of those days in American history that lives in infamy, speaking of business. President Bill Clinton signed NAFTA into law. It was a law full of good intentions, aimed at making it easier for companies to do business in other countries. What happened, though, was American companies saw a good thing when it landed in their lap. They hired low-paid foreign workers to build the cars, make the widgets, and even export food to the U.S. It cost millions of American jobs, and it made it very difficult for American companies that produced product in this country to compete because U.S. workers expect to be paid for their hard work, and unions came close to going out of business. That wasn't what Bill Clinton intended, but that's the way it worked out. Some really great things also happened on this date, by the way. In 1987, the first nuclear arms reduction between the U.S. and Russia was put to paper. 4 years later, on this date, the Soviet Union fell apart. Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine became the Commonwealth of Independent States. Two awful anniversaries also happened on this date. One day after Pearl Harbor, the U.S. declared war on Japan. It was on. That was in 1941. In 1980, John Lennon was shot dead outside the Dakota apartment building in New York City, where he lived. All about this date. Didn't mean to focus on this day in history necessarily, except that business stuff with NAFTA came up. Oh well, everything is a rabbit hole if you're not careful, or if you're a busy rabbit. Remember a couple days ago when I told you the Trump peace team was having another go with Ukraine's delegation trying to end the war with Russia? Russia had said there was much to talk about that was hopeful. Well, on the same day, that night, Russia fired 51 missiles into Ukraine and sent 653 drones aimed at targets in Ukraine. It seems apparent they spell peace talks differently in Russian. Operation Pacific Viper continues. The Navy's targeting of drug boats by simply sinking them with a missile or two has dominated the big headlines, but the old-fashioned ways continue too. Chalk up a big one for the Coast Guard. Cutter Monroe and some guardsmen in helicopters working together. They stopped a drug boat south of Mexico in the eastern Pacific Ocean. It was a fast boat, another one of those that you've seen getting blown up, with 3 big engines on the back, the stern, one of which was disabled by a couple of cracked shots from a Coast Guard sniper in the helicopter. This slowed it down and allowed the cutter Monroe to come alongside and commandeer the boat. On board, more than 10 tons of cocaine. Biggest high seas seizure in nearly 20 years. First of all, that was some mighty fine shooting from a vibrating, hovering helicopter with a .50 caliber rifle at a fast-moving target more than a quarter mile away. There's video. The smugglers on that boat are actually really lucky. They could have sent the Navy. Breathe. Just breathe. It is important to keep breathing, right? Goes without saying. When we can't, because we're sick, have asthma, or pneumonia, or the lungs don't work right for any reason, or maybe there's an injury, maybe one lung has collapsed, the other one might follow. These are big bad news events. One day, maybe, we'll just breathe through our butts. Not a joke. In Japan, Dr. Takanori Takibi was pretty distressed by how invasive breathing tubes were for his dad when he got sick. Dr. Takibi is a stem cell biologist and mostly tries to grow livers in the lab to treat liver failure and come up with a replacement. But one day, a graduate student engaged him in a discussion about how some animals breathe through their skin or through their guts, even through their genitals. Weird, right? Turns out we can do that. Dr. Takibi and his team gave 27 healthy men enemas of highly oxygenated fluid called perfluorodecolin. Different amounts. The question, would the walls of the intestines absorb the oxygen and enrich the blood supply for the whole body the way the lungs do? Turns out, yes, after a fashion, it works. Seems they can squirt a liter, roughly a quart, of perfluorodecolin up there, and you are oxygenated for a couple of minutes. Of course, that means you have to hold it, which can be a challenge. And then after you relieve the pressure, they have to give you another quart squirt, and on it goes. So what does that mean? Well, for someone who's stuck in a hospital waiting for doctors, surgeons to fix their lung problem, instead of inserting an air hose down their nose or throat, they might insert another kind of hose. Well, you know where, up the keister. Fortunately, it's not expected to be any kind of long-term process. Thank God. At the very least, it could buy some time while doctors get someone who needs it on life support. Those minutes of getting you hooked up can be really dicey. Backdoor oxygen could be a lifesaver. I bet you didn't expect that story today. Huh? Yeah. Me neither. Thanks for staying with me through it. Every day has something worth talking about. I hope if you get anything worthwhile out of these Harley on the Headlines visits, please help spread the word. I need your help. Really mean it when I say can't do it without you. Hit the like, follow, subscribe buttons. Drop a comment. Be sure to come back. I'm Harley Carnes, and we'll see you soon.